Yes, that's right, it's Joe here for Joyrider TV, and yes, that's right, I'm in the Wildwind Boat Park, and we are looking at the different locking mechanisms that hold this mainsail up on catamarans. We're going to be looking at the locking mechanism for the Hobie Tiger, and we're going to be starting with the more traditional ring and hook system, which is on most F-18s, Tornado, Hobie 18 and so many other boats. These use a ring like this which attaches to the top of the sail, and then at the top of the mast you've got a hook that sticks out like this, and the idea is that the ring is pulled up, it slips onto the hook, and then there it is locked. Now if we've got a ring like this which is just bare, there are two ways that this could be attached to the main halyard. One is where it is tied just onto the top of the ring like this, and I generally use what I call the lazy kite surfer knot, which is the same knot I use for the trapezes, where we just have a thumb knot in the end, pass it through, and we tie the most simple knot there is. But this is the one that is guaranteed not to come off. Now the other way to tie this one on, the same, but onto the top part of the shackle. And it's different from boat to boat. So this is a little bit of a trial and error testing that you'd have to do with your boat to find out which way works best. Now we're not going to tie it onto the top using a bowline, because that's going to mean that the ring isn't going to be able to be pulled up high enough up the top of the mast. It might hook in, but it will be very difficult to unhook it afterwards. The other type of ring is the one that's been elected to be used on this boat, and that's one which has got a little extra loop at the top, and when you've got that, the halyard just comes through and it just has a stopper knot in the end, and there we go. Very simple. When you attach the main halyard, there's two ways that you can put it on, either with the knot to the back. Now if we have the knot to the back, if we kind of think about how this is going to pull, it's going to pull it pretty straight up. Now this might make it easier to unhook, but less easy to hook in. If we have the main halyard the other way round with the knot at the front, it's going to be easier to hook in, because the pull when this is going up is going to be pulling it more forwards, but it might be more tricky to have it unhook. But to start with, I'd say this is the industry standard, so we're going to go with this. And then two things before we actually hoist the sail. One is we want to look up the mast, because some masts have the hook, like on the Tornado, has the hook at the top in the middle of the mast and it swivels from side to side. Other masts will actually have the hook fixed to one side of the mast, and if we've got the hook which is fixed to one side, we just need to make sure by looking up the middle of the mast that the halyard at the top isn't having to go around the wrong side of the hook. So if it is, this just requires a flick, and we'll flick it until we get it off the hook, so it's running very straight all the way to the pulley at the top. The other thing that we're going to do before we hoist the sail is we are going to, well, it's a good time to actually wash the sail completely before you go sailing. Counterintuitive, yes I know, but what we're definitely going to do is we're going to wash the luff, the front edge of the sail, or at least wet it. That's going to make it so much easier to pull it up the mast. Okay, so we can now introduce the sail to the mast, and if we're alone, far easier with this type of boat is to take the halyard from where the opening is in the mast track, because we can then pull the halyard from here. We just need to make sure that the halyard is definitely inside the mast, and that when we pull, we're pulling slightly forwards like this, because what we can't have happen is the halyard goes backwards, which might cause the sail to jam, like if it came out like this. So then pulling like this, we can then introduce the sail to the mast. Of course, if we have got two people, we could hoist the sail in the conventional way. By doing it like this, we can then use one hand to feed and the other hand to pull it up. And because the sail's wet, it goes up nice and easy. Okay, so the last pull to get the sail up needs to be slightly more assertive, because we're pulling the ring over that hook at the top. We get an audible noise, just like that. We can then pull the sail down, and then in theory, the sail should be hooked up. Now, before we hoist the sail, what I should have mentioned is something else that makes it much easier, and sometimes it won't actually be possible to hook the sail up properly if the boat, the mast and the sail aren't into the wind. So the boat needs to be pointing into the wind. We have the mast straight into the wind. That means that the sail will then be totally in line. That will reduce the amount of friction, make everything easier, and make it possible to hook it up. So there we are. She's hooked up. So again, when we come to bring the sail down, the same as when we pulled the sail up, it's really important that the boat is pointing into the wind, the mast is into the wind, which means the sail will then be in line with everything else. If you can take any tension out of the main sheet, here we haven't even got the boom on. You can leave the boom on, but the main sheet certainly needs to be very loose. We then need to make sure that the mast rotation is as loose as possible, because we're going to need to rotate the mast. Again, it depends on your specific boat which method is going to work for you. There's 4 ways that we can do this. Now, this might sound quite obvious, but maybe not until you've heard it. Is we could pull the sail up, then pull the mast a small amount to the port side. We could pull the sail up and then pull it as far as possible to the port side. That might be for specific boats. And then we can do the same on the other side if it's not working to that side. I'm now on the boat, as you can see. I'm going to pull the halyard from the bottom here, and then keeping a little bit of tension on the halyard this time, I'm going to push the mast round a little bit to starboard. So that's at about 45 degrees, and then she says no. Okay, we've got 2 more choices. So pushing the sail up a bit. We're now going to give it a pull and going to push the mast as far as I can round to starboard. And because the mast is round a long way, it's going to take more pull to get the sail to come down. So what I'm actually going to do is take a bit of main halyard like this, making sure that we've got loads of slack. I'll put it through the tack of the sail, and that's just going to give me something to pull, and then pulling it down. There we go. She's off the hook. We know it's off the hook because it came down, but that's a good way of getting a bit more purchase having something a bit more to pull onto. As we can see, the hook is on top of the sail and it hooks into a hole at the top of the mast. I know, crazy, right? But it is actually, in my opinion, the best method that there is, because it's the only one that actually puts the sail right at the top of the mast. So before we attach the halyard, we just want to look up the mast and make sure it's not twisted at all. So there we go. And then, like with the Formula 18, we're going to make sure that the boat is pointing into the wind, the mast is into the wind, and that means the sail will be into the wind for reduced friction. Okay, and then all we've got here is a hole, nothing on the halyard, so we're going to put the halyard through the hole in the plate there, and it doesn't actually matter which way you put it through, apart from to get into a routine. And for me, and for here at Wildwind, we always go not on the left. So that's not, we put it through from the starboard side to the port side and put a figure of 8 knot in the end of the halyard, and that is so that it's exactly the same every time. With all of these, better not to have the boom on before you hoist it, just makes it a bit heavier. And again, I'm going to give her a good old hosing before we pull it up. If we're hoisting solo, we're going to take the halyard from the mast track here, and again making sure we pull it slightly forwards so that it's not going to jam. Of course, if there's 2 people, we can hoist it using the sheath at the bottom. We want the hook on the same side of the mast as the knot, and then the halyard will be on the other side. The one thing that's going to stop it from being able to hook in at the top is if the hook is the wrong side of the halyard, then that means that when it gets to the top, that's going to jam and the sail is not going to be able to hook up. Okay, so now we can hoist the sail. Okay, so we're getting close to the top. Again, we want to have a good definitive pull when it comes to the top, and we'll feel that the sail is definitely hitting the top of the track. And then because the hook is on this side, on the port side, we're going to rotate the mast to starboard. You can look up the mast here, and what you're looking for is to not be able to see the hook at the top there. And then once we get there, we'll pull the sail down, and that is going to put the hook into the top of the mast, into the hole. We can then pull the mast the other way, pull it from one side to the other a few times whilst looking up to check it. And if we can't see the hook at all and the sail stays up, then that's it, we're hooked in. Making sure everything is in line, the wind, the mast, the sail. We'll push the sail up a little bit, take the halyard, again making sure that we don't pull it backwards, or we could pull it from the sheave at the bottom of the mast, and we'll give it a pull. And then having given it a pull, if we look up the mast, unfortunately we won't be able to see on the camera, but the hook naturally comes out to the side, so we don't need to rotate the mast. All we need to then do is pull the sail down and she's off. Very nice. Okay, and then it comes to the Hobie 16. Now, to rig the Hobie 16, check out this video here. There you go. All right, so that is it for rigging boats and de-rigging boats. Key points to remember: have the boat pointing into the wind, make sure the mast is straight in line with the boat, and if you get the sail wet first, it is so much easier, it will save your hands, much easier. If you haven't got a hose pipe available, get a little spray bottle, spray the luff of the sail before you hoist it, much easier. Okay, thanks very much, and I'll see you soon with some more on Joyrider TV.